Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite Powerpuff Girls games of all time. No, not that one. What? No! Okay, look, it's not an official game, it's a fan game. Okay, well, that is the best, but it's not what I'm talking about in this video. Ugh. This is what happens when I try to use clickbait. So, one thing you probably don't know about me is that I tend to be a massive lore enthusiast on the fandom history of long-standing franchises. I could talk all day about the ambitions of the Sonic fandom, the bizarre intricacies of the Winx Club fandom, or the disturbingly gruesome plots of the My Little Pony fandom. But out of all the wacky fandom content I want to talk about on this channel, the stuff we've gotten for the Powerpuff Girls ranks pretty high because of all the wacky yet awesome shit this fandom has given us. I could go on, but I'll stop there because I don't want to accidentally spoil some of my future videos. Anyway, after looking over all the Powerpuff Girl fanworks and deciding on which one I wanted to cover first, I ended up stumbling across this obscure little gem, PBG Puzzlepuff. Created by game developer Tifu Blackmoth, this was designed as a platformer puzzle adventure for the Powerpuffs. You take control of all three girls as you navigate the level, making your way through challenging terrain and menacing enemies as you try to get to the end. Oh, and you can't just cheese through the game because your powers were stolen by the dastardly Mojo Jojo. Fun, right? In the past, I was kind of confused on why this game was so obscure, especially with the official Powerpuff Girls games being what they are. Fan content like this was sorely needed at the time. Looking back on it today, though, I can kind of see why. There's the obvious game problems that I'll be talking about later, but there were also barely any videos even made about this thing. Even with a lot of older YouTube content having been lost to time, I remember browsing the web as a kid when this one was still fairly new, and I think I only saw one video talking about it. And even then, it was a development update from the creator. It also doesn't help that the game seems pretty niche on the surface. While the platforming aspect might draw in some attention, I know a lot of people don't usually like mixing in puzzles with video games. I mean, I already hate jigsaw puzzles in real life. How is doing one virtually gonna make it any better? Yeah, I know it's not the same kind of thing, but I don't know, I imagine some people just might not be super into this one. In any case, the original website that Puzzlepuff was hosted on went to the graveyard a few years ago, meaning it now didn't even have a central website to attract newcomers. But wouldn't you know it, your old pal Noob was able to do some digging and get a copy up and running for y'all. You're welcome. Okay, dialing back on the egotism there. In truth, I have made efforts in the past to bring more eyes onto this game. On an old channel that I used to have, one that I refuse to name and has long since been deleted, I made a sort of no commentary playthrough on the game, only really adding in some music since the original game didn't come with any. Now that I'm no longer running a channel that was an absolute train wreck in hindsight, I thought I'd take another crack at this game and give it the spotlight it deserves. And hopefully I can convince some of y'all to try it out for yourselves. With all that being said, let's get ready to rock and roll. The game starts with a short little introductory cutscene. The Powerpuff Girls and Professor Utonium are enjoying some breakfast in the kitchen, blissfully unaware of the supervillain watching them through their window. Yes, Mojo Jojo is here with a foolproof plan to destroy the Powerpuffs once and for all. He fires a damn missile at their house laced with Antidote X, rendering the girls powerless and giving him, along with all the other villains in Townsville, the perfect opportunity to wreak some havoc. This is actually a surprisingly effective plan. Kinda makes you wonder why he never tried something like this in the actual show. But whatever. The point is, it's up to the Powerpuff Girls to get their powers back and defeat Mojo Jojo. And thus, the game finally starts. So what we've got on our hands is a pretty simple control scheme. You can move left or right, climb up or down, jump with the A button, and switch between the girls with the tab key. Right off the bat, you're introduced to some of the common platforming challenges of this game. You need to use your sister to help boost you onto this platform here, so you can make your way over to this switch and control this elevator type structure to bring the other two girls up to your level. After some more basic platforming, you'll eventually come across this room with 3 hearts on the ground. Once you stand on all 3 of them with each girl, it takes you to another room underneath with some Chemical X laying around. This gives each of the girls a boost in their jump height and restores one of their powers. Blossom gets her ice breath back, Bubbles her sonic scream, and Buttercup her super strength. All of these can be activated with the D button except for Buttercup's strength, which can be activated by holding the attack button next to a box. Using all of these powers in tandem, you should be able to make your way out and complete stage 1. The next level introduces us to another important element of the game, combat. As you progress through the game, you'll come across enemies like these Robo Jojos. You can hit them with the attack button and they'll usually take about 4 to 5 hits to kill. though, you can repair them by pressing the up key in case you need them for a platforming section. You gotta be careful though, cause these guys can also attack you if you get too close, and it's only 4 hits until you're dead. I would recommend fighting these guys with Blossom or Bubbles, since their special moves are able to temporarily stun them. Other than that, there's nothing else worth mentioning aside from learning here that Buttercup is the only one with the stomach to trudge through sewage. Nice little homage to the show. Stage 3 is where we get to experience the very first boss battle. At Pokeoke's kindergarten, Princess Morbucks has gone haywire after being told she can't be a Powerpuff Girl despite the trio having lost their powers. This level can be a bit tricky at first, and you can buy yourself a quick game over if you don't know what you're doing. It's essentially supposed to be a balancing act, where you keep Princess busy with one of the girls while the other attacks her from behind. She occasionally tries to mix things up, but once you get into the rhythm of it, she's as good as done for. Stage 4 is pretty uneventful in the grand scheme of things. You basically just have to find 3 keys scattered around the map, and there's one section where little Arturo from the Gangrene Gang will occasionally drop items to hurt you. Nothing else really noteworthy, so let's move on. Stage 5 is where things start to ramp up in both mechanics and difficulty. At the beginning of the stage, you'll see this conveyor belt that you can't use because it's going in the opposite direction, so for now you have to ignore it and make your way up this little obstacle course. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that Stage 4 introduced these platform thingies that'll shoot a red beam if you're standing underneath them. They can be pretty easily manipulated so that you can move one of the girls or even a box across a large pit. Anyway, you'll eventually find a key that can be used to open a door underground, only to find another locked door that requires 2 buttons below it to be pressed by 2 of the 3 girls. You'll end up leaving Bubbles and Buttercup behind because you need Blossom's ice breath to reach the nearby ledge. Afterwards, you'll come across this strange capsule. In it will reveal Professor Utonium himself along with a blatant Mega Man reference. Like seriously, they got the music and everything. The professor will explain that he built these capsules in preparation for situations like these, where the girls lost their powers and the only person capable of giving them back was MIA for whatever reason. Little convenient there, but I digress. Stepping into the capsule will restore Blossom's super speed, which allows her to get to the end of that conveyor belt from earlier and turn it off so the other girls can make it through. Other than that, the rest of this level is completely smooth sailing. Oh my fucking god, this part. So, before you can reach the end of the level, you gotta get through this section where Snake from the Gangrene Gang takes control of the construction site and tries to get you crushed. Luckily, Buttercup is given one of her boxes to keep the crushers at bay, and so she can easily make her way through the area. Problem is, Bubbles does not have her super strength, and you need to get all 3 girls to the end of a level before you can complete it. You see where this is going? You have to move through this section with both Bubbles and Buttercup, switching between them both to keep either one from getting crushed. If you don't switch fast enough, game over. If you don't properly time your movements, game over. If you don't know how to maneuver over these last 2 crushers with another big ass box blocking your path, game freaking over. I'll be honest, it took me a few years to actually get past this part. As a younger kid, I have vague memories of trying desperately to coordinate Bubbles and Buttercup do the death trap, not even knowing if I was doing this part right, before eventually just giving up and playing something else. But thankfully, with age comes more skill, and so I have had very little difficulty completing this section today. Ugh, god damn it! Fuck this part! Stages 6 through 8 are where the game kinda starts to lose me. I find Stage 6 to be extremely tedious and a prime example of this game's biggest flaw, which is being far too cryptic for its own good. For example, there's this one section with a large conveyor belt that you have to cross, which only Blossom can do because of her super speed. But Grubber from the Gangrene Gang is constantly dropping fucking bombs all over the track, so you can't get hit any more than 3 times or it's game over. When I was recording footage for this one, I shit you not, I attempted this section like 15 different times. It got to the point where I thought I was just trying to get through this part too early and I had to find something to knock out Grubber with. So then I tried going through this part with Bubbles and Buttercup before coming across these split pathways. Naturally, I started going through the sewer path with Buttercup, reached one of those sections requiring the other girls for a height boost, and then found that I couldn't get to the other path without the aforementioned height boost, meaning that I had to restart the entire level. And yeah, it turned out I did have to just tough it out with Grubber on the conveyor belt. I eventually did manage to get through, but only just barely and through sheer dumb luck. I don't know, I feel like a lot of this stuff could have been easily avoided with a bit more polish, but this was definitely one of my least favorite levels of the entire game. At least Stage 5 only introduced the bullshit at the very end. Stage 7 is marginally better than the last one, but it still suffers from the same problem of being far too tedious and leaving too much to trial and error. Near the end of the level, Bubbles receives her special power through a Super Mario power-up block. Laying it thick with the references, aren't we? she now has the ability to talk to animals and let them help her through the level. As cool as this may seem, there are really only two ways this power is used. You either talk to a squirrel and have them get through a tight space to open a switch, or you talk to a bird and get the ability to fly for a few seconds. Of all the secondary powers, the one Bubbles gets has got to be my least favorite. It's just too situational, and outside of a few isolated incidents, you don't even use it all that much. This is probably just me being overzealous with a fan game, but I think it would have been way cooler if she could activate her special power anywhere. Like, if she wanted to use a bird to fly, just press the special button and select the bird from some kind of pop-up menu. Voila! Look at her go! Stage 8 is yet another level where there are far too many intricacies and not enough gameplay exposition, which ends up making the experience an absolute slog to get through. I know that I've been harping on this, but it just gets really annoying when I'm forced to restart a stage because I didn't get through one section the way I was supposed to, despite having no indicator of how I was supposed to get through it. It would have really helped to have more visual cues throughout the level. You know how Sonic Heroes has those floating signs that signify whether a section is intended for speed, fly, or power types? I think that would have worked perfectly here. If there's a section that requires Blossom super speed, then place some Blossom sign over the area. If you need to move some boxes to get across, place a Buttercup sign over the area, and so on. It would have made these last three stages and also some of the later stages much less tedious to get through. Stage 9 is another boss fight, this time against the ultimate, the dreaded, the terrifying Amoeba Boys. They're like so easy to beat, I didn't even need to use any sort of strategy, I just spammed the attack button. Moving on! Stage 10 is another level that is too tedious, too cryptic, too annoying, etc, etc. Also, why does this one feel so long? I've already explained my thoughts on all of this, so I won't retread old ground. Let's just move on before I get even more annoyed. Can we talk about stage 11 though? This one was literally so much fun, definitely one of my favorites. As you may have noticed by now, each girl seems to be given a secondary power after completing several levels in a row. And now it's time for Buttercup to get hers. Just like with the previous two power-up stages, you get separated from your sisters about halfway through the level. After Buttercup gets through some of that infamous sewer water, she finds herself in some kind of underground tunnel with platforms and boxes all over the place. Your main goal is to gather all three boxes and place them in their designated slots. Doing so will open up a tunnel here, which will lead into yet another reference, this time from the Metroid series. Yes, I only knew that because of the music. After collecting this shiny, glowy orb in the thing, Buttercup gains the ability to do a super jump when holding down the special key. With this new ability, you can easily get back up to your sisters and complete the rest of the level. I'm just gonna say right now, this is my favorite secondary ability. Not only does it make platforming a lot less tedious and a lot more fun, but it also gives me something entertaining to do when I'm moving over to the next location in a given level. Look, I have ADHD, okay? Stimming and slow-paced video games is just my bread and butter. Stage 12 is a boss fight against the infamous Sedusa. You stumble across the Townsville Bank where a distraught Miss Bellum pleads for you to stop Sedusa's reign of terror. But haha, nice try, Miss Bellum. I've seen this whole song and dance before, and you're not fooling me. Time to put this supervillain to rest. Okay, I guess this really is Miss Bellum. It would have been a really funny twist if the game had gone there, though. Anyway, once you encounter the actual Sedusa, she tries to make a break for it, and you need to use Blossom's super speed to cut her off. Once she shuts the door, Sedusa wastes time trying to crack it open, and it's pretty easy to defeat her at that point. The final arc within this game begins with Stage 13. After some typical platforming shenanigans, you'll be able to enter Mojo's Volcano Observatory, only to be dropped down to a lower floor. As Buttercup explains here, Mojo is setting up a trap for you, and each of the girls have to go their separate ways and regroup near the end. This is definitely one of the better stages of the game for a lot of different reasons. For one thing, a lot of the more annoying elements are stripped back considerably. Each of the girls has their own section clearly indicated by these colored blocks, so right off the bat there's no chance of using the wrong character or being forced to restart. The level design is also pretty decently executed here. There are some nice platforming challenges, along with certain sections that can be tricky to navigate, but not so much so that it feels downright unfair like it did in previous levels. It all comes together pretty seamlessly, and even if it was at the tail end of the game, it seems like the creator was finally starting to get the hang of things at this point. Stage 14 continues on the same trajectory as the last level, with more great platforming, more puzzles, and a more enjoyable experience. I don't want to describe every single aspect of this level in case any of y'all want to experience it for yourself, but I will list some of my personal highlights. At one point, there's this robot shaped like a circle that's blocking your path, and to defeat this robot, you just keep punching it. Literally, you just punch and punch and punch until eventually you push it off the ledge. That was just really funny to me for some reason. There's also this part where you get all 3 girls on the elevator thingy and you start going down, everything looks normal, and oh my god, we are heading for the lava. I need to get everybody off this ride and oh, it stopped. Oh well. Eventually you'll come across the professor in this hypnotized state, but then one good punch will bring him back to normal. He opens up a door leading to Mojo's lair, and you're free to go off and beat him in the next level. The final stage in this game begins with some standard platforming stuff before finally making your way to Mojo. Unfortunately, Mojo thought ahead and armed himself with a spare vial of Antidote X, rendering the girls powerless again. But fear not, Professor Utonium is still free and he can use the ingredients scattered around Mojo's lair to make more Chemical X. Essentially, there are 5 different items locked behind different platforming challenges that you need to collect. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, so I'll just go over some of the highlights. One of the challenges involves a sort of green light red light system where you have to time your movements to correspond with the electronic gate shutting off. On my first attempt, this happened. Yeah. But it's okay because I did it right the next time. Oh, and there's also this moment where you end up going through this large tube, and right below you can see the Powerpuff Girls all chained up like that scene from Mr. Mojo's Rising. Other than that, once you get all 5 ingredients and make Chemical X, you confront Mojo Jojo and get the opportunity to give one of the girls their powers back. And of course, with me being the Bubbles fanboy that I am, of course I chose to give her the Chemical X. In the next instant, you're thrust into a final battle with Mojo, and to be honest, it's a bit of a letdown. Your control scheme is changed around a bit to let you fly around with the arrow keys. The A button is now for your laser eyes, S for punching, and D for an enhanced version of your special power. But good luck properly using any of these attacks because the boss itself is dreadfully short. Mojo will occasionally attempt to shoot a bunch of missiles at you, but you can dodge them easily enough, and if you keep on spamming the attack button, you can kill him way too easily for what is essentially supposed to be the final boss. I mean, this is the only time in the entire game where you're able to use the girls with their full powers, and it's over in less than a minute. At least let us use these powers outside of this single level if you're gonna be underwhelming like that. If you're curious, Blossom and Buttercup aren't that much different from Bubbles, they just get Ice Breath and a Tornado for their special moves respectively. After defeating Mojo, you get a credit sequence showing the girls regaining their powers and fixing Townsville before they head to bed, thereby bringing the game to a close. To close out all of this craziness, PBG Puzzlepuff is overall a very strange experience. One of the biggest selling points of this game is that you aren't even playing as the girls at their full power, just with a few of their abilities. And even then, when you do get to play as the girls at their full power, it's already over before it even begins. Now, I understand that it's significantly easier to build a platformer when you don't have to factor in characters that can fly around and use a bunch of overpowered moves to crush any real challenges. But I can see the alternative route of taking away most of these powers easily turning a lot of people off, especially those looking for an experience that truly lets you feel like a Powerpuff Girl. If you can ignore those weaknesses though, this actually ends up being a surprisingly enjoyable experience, at least most of the time. I've already said this so many times, but the game really struggles with engaging level design and properly explaining its mechanics, especially in the middle part where this problem skyrockets and leads to several sections that can either push you into an unfair game over or force you to restart because it's now impossible to progress any further. Just adding a bit more polish in these areas, along with more indicators of what exactly you're intended to do, would have gone a long way in alleviating these problems. But like I said, when the game isn't being completely tedious, I find myself having fun with it. The platforming and puzzling aspects are enjoyable, the powers are fun to experiment with, especially the secondary powers, and the overall game is short enough so that it doesn't overstay its welcome or exacerbate the flaws to the point of annoyance. My final ranking for PBG Puzzlepuff is a 6 out of 10. If the game was a bit more polished and the midpoint levels didn't drag on for so long, it probably would have gotten a 7 or a low 8. But as it is, the game is an okay, enjoyable experience. So yeah, I hope this game seemed funnish to you guys. If you're interested in playing it for yourself, I'll have a link down in the description for you to try. And of course, if you want to discover more of these awesome PBG fan works, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Trust me, I plan to be introducing a lot more of these gems from fandom history. But that's all from me, I guess. See y'all later.